Threnody is one of the most dangerous places in the entire Cosmere. Its past is shrouded in mystery and is considered highly dangerous by Cosmere-aware individuals. This is largely due to three related phenomena: the Shades, the evil, and damage done to the spiritual realm by an ancient conflict. Welcome, my friends, to the one place in the Cosmere I never wanted to go. Welcome, my friends, to the Forests of Hell. This video will be an overview of what we know about Threnody, about its past, about the Shades, about what it's like to live here now, as well as Threnodites' role in the future of the Cosmere. I'll also be speculating about the evil and what we know and don't know about it.
I'll be sourcing information from Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell, The Sunlit Man, Mistborn Secret History, and some words of Brandon. There shouldn't be too many story spoilers in this video, but if I can't avoid a spoiler, I will provide a timestamp for where to skip to.
Threnody's past is largely shrouded in mystery. We know bits and pieces of what happened, but are missing some vital context. For example, we know that human life and investiture was on the planet before the events of the Shattering, but if they had access to some sort of magic system or what they did with this investiture is unknown.
Shortly after the Shattering, Ambition was attacked by Odium and the Threnodite system. Mercy was also there and involved in the conflict in some way. In the clash between Odium, Mercy, and Ambition, the spiritual realm itself was damaged, and chunks of power ripped off Ambition. Ambition fled and was finally killed in interstellar space, but the damage to the spiritual realm and the Threnodite system had already been done.
We don't know why Odium went after Ambition first, and we don't know how long Ambition was in the system before Odium arrived. We also don't know how or why Mercy was involved in this conflict. But what we do know is that the repercussions of this Shardic conflict are still being felt by the Threnodites today.
The civilization that existed on Threnody was quite advanced for the time. They had a thriving civilization on the main continent, called the Homeland, as well as advanced technology like gunpowder. The Threnodites had discovered the second, smaller continent before the evil arrived, but settlement was stalled initially when they realized the land already had inhabitants of a sort. Upon arriving on the second continent, they found a landscape covered in deciduous forests, a land devoid of any living souls. They found a continent full of shades, what they believed to be the souls of the damned before the evil arrived or took shape.
When I made this realization during my research, I was genuinely surprised. For whatever reason, I always thought that the Shades came about as a result of the Shardic conflict between Odium and Ambition, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. It appears that the Shades in some form, goodness gracious, I hate those guys, were around in some form even before the evil happened. Whether or not that's just because it took a while for the evil to manifest after the spiritual realm was damaged is unclear. Shades are ghosts or cognitive shadows that haunt the forests on the second continent. They're only visible at night, but they're still around during the day, which is honestly kind of terrifying.
In their normal state, they appear as misty white humanoid forms with glassy eyes.
When they become aware or alert of something in their surroundings, but they aren't ready to attack, their eyes turn green. Kind of like these folks back here.
When they become enraged, their color bleeds from white to black, and their eyes turn red. The older a shade is, the less human and defined it appears.
When someone breaks one of the simple rules, which I'll talk about more in a minute, the Shade's eyes turn from green to red. They go into a frenzy, trying to kill the perpetrator who broke one of the simple rules. This frenzy will also wear off after some unknown amount of time. Exactly why mechanically breaking one of these rules sends Shades into a frenzy is also unknown.
When a Shade attacks a person, they wither. Contact with a Shade feels unnaturally cold. Their skin becomes tight and the water from their body is apparently sucked away. Withering can be treated by quickly applying silver dust to a wound. If no silver is available but the person is still able to escape, they'll be permanently scarred. Fresh withering appears as blackened skin, but over time the marks fade to a dull gray, in a way that I imagine is similar to a shardblade wound, but more patchy. Silence blinked, coming out of the memory as her daughter dumped silver dust on the exposed arm. The withering stopped as William Ann, choking against her thick tears, dumped the entire pouch of emergency silver onto the hand. The metal reversed the withering, and the skin turned pink again, the blackness melting away in sparks of white. Though the cold had mostly retreated from Silence's hand, there was a lingering something. A limb touched by a Shade wouldn't feel right for months. That was far better than what could have happened. Without William Ann's quick thinking, Silence could have become a cripple. Once the withering settled in, that took a little time though it varied, it was irreversible.
The Shade's target doesn't have access to silver and isn't able to get away. The Shades will attack until they become a dried out, withered, blackened corpse. The only thing known to harm a Shade is silver. When they come in contact with silver, it lets off a spark, and that silver becomes expended and used up. When the silver sparks and gets used up, the shade is forced to move away. Thankfully, Threnody has an abundance of silver, probably more than is natural.
Shades will only come after you if you break one of the aforementioned simple rules. These are 1. Don't run at night, 2. Don't kindle flame, and 3. Don't shed the blood of another. These things attract shades and send them into a frenzy. Because of these rules, fire is a hot commodity, one might say. Once a fire is made, people keep it lit. The act of kindling flame is what enrages shades, but the spreading of it does not. There are people called fire merchants who live in the fortress towns and sell their already prepared fires.
Because of rule number 3, violence and law enforcement are pretty difficult on Threnody. They usually opt for things like hammers and cudgels, or things that break bones and don't draw blood. How a shade would react to internal bleeding isn't clear. I imagine they wouldn't care because blood is not in contact with the air, and that seems to be the determining factor. Additionally, it can't be your own blood. This was something that I was confused about for a while. I thought that if you got a bloody nose on Threnody, it was just over, but thankfully that's not the case. As a result of fire being hard to access, people usually use something called glow paste. What it's made out of, I'm not sure, but it fluoresces at night. Why shades react to people breaking these rules is unknown. However, I'm pretty sure we know how the Threnodites figured it out.
The remaining life on Threnody exists almost entirely in the forests of Hell. There are homesteads, people who've gone off into the woods on their own, way stops, inns, and taverns along the roads, usually run by independent families that pay taxes to the fort folk, and fortress towns, cities set up as fortresses first and towns second. This is where you'll find most of the people on the planet, and where civilization remains.
These towns seem to have a way to keep shades out. Whether that's silver defenses or geographic location is unknown. It's also unknown how they deal with people dying and turning into shades inside the city, but I guess we'll find out someday, hopefully.
There are no predators in the forests. The shades would have taken care of them ages ago. The people of Threnody do keep some animals for food. They have to make sure their silver defenses are prepared and adequate before killing the animal. Although they do set traps to catch rabbits and turkeys that kill the animal in a manner that doesn't draw blood. Part of me wonders how the forests remain productive. Predators serve a critical role in keeping herbivores from overgrazing. What prevents the deer, turkey, and rabbits from eating all the food in the forests and their populations from going out of control?
If I wasn't so terrified of this place and it wasn't so eerie, I might stick around to investigate this ecological phenomena. But instead, I am going to do my research and get out of here as soon as I rusting can.
The people who live on Threnody are a hardy bunch. They don't really care about differences among them like race and religion because they have other things to worry about. The people also have very distinctive, almost puritanical names. There are Threnodites with names like Prudence, Ernest, Theopolis, Solemnity Divine, Tobias, Makepeace, Herald, Lamentation, Silence, and everyone's favorite, Adonalcium will remember our plight eventually. What a legend.
Stepping out of the Cosmere for a moment, I want to talk about some information surrounding the book. We learn about Threnody and Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell, which was written by Brandon as part of an anthology series with George R.R. Martin called Dangerous Women. I'll read some of the preface here, but it's really fascinating how it was a culmination of a pre-built world, family history, and an anthology that brought this story into being.
Something had happened recently that had planted a seed in my mind. I had been involved in some genealogy work and run across a name of a Puritan woman named Silence. That intrigued me. Who would name their daughter Silence, and for what reason? Charity, I get. Faith totally makes sense. But Silence? Perhaps she was late in the birth order and her parents were really hoping to sleep through the night this time. Either way, the name stuck with me. I had the idea for Threnody, the Cosmere world, where a group of pilgrim-esque people fled the old world because it was overrun by a terrible evil long ago. It was actually a very early Cosmere world, developed somewhere around 1999 or 2000. Having an intriguing Puritan name and a world that took inspiration from early American history seemed a ready-made match, but then I had to ask myself, how was Silence going to be dangerous? The original idea for Threnody was to make a system of magical rules with their roots in the law of Moses and Jewish tradition, not mixing blood with milk, not kindling flame after nightfall on the Sabbath, etc. Many of those rules transformed over the years, leaving their roots behind in the same way that the Stormlight magic system left behind its roots in the fundamental forces of physics. But you can see those hints still having an influence on the tone and setting of the story.
What I find particularly interesting is the idea about what a society that values an attribute like silence enough to name a child that would be like. as well as there was some inspiration from traditional Jewish laws, particularly about keeping the Sabbath, that were thrown in there for inspiration for the simple rules. Getting on and off this world is incredibly difficult. Threnody doesn't have a stable or permanent perpendicularity. They pop up sporadically, and their creation is very morbid. I am still not comfortable talking about how I got here. Sorry.
So the Threnody novel is a perpendicularity in a specific place, or does it have to do with like a set of circumstances?
Threnody does not have a perpendicularity.
Oh, I forgot that.
It has
The way to travel.
the way to travel on there. It has specifically to do with the fact that a shard was killed nearby.
Every Threnodite has the potential to become a shade when they die. It's unclear what causes this transformation, but every Threnodite has a shadowy chunk of investiture tied to their soul. What this chunk is exactly and how much of the original person's identity remains attached to it is unknown and seems to vary.
Threnodite shades don't seem to retain much of their identity, if any. However, there is a group that does have shades that does retain their identity. The difference might be a difference of knowledge. We do know that the process to become a shade used to be more codified with rites and traditions required to become one. So maybe this group with shades that retain more of their identity still has these rites and traditions, and that helps the process.
Threnodites can become shades regardless of location. Anywhere they die, they have the potential to become a shade, which is pretty unique in the Cosmere when talking about cognitive shadows. This leads to Threnodites being considered somewhat dangerous by other peoples in the Cosmere because potentially at any moment, your Threnodite friend could turn into an angry and vengeful spirit.
As a matter of fact, shades are so dangerous that a group of world-hopping Elantrians called the Airi has guards at the Threnodite border to presumably keep the shades in. They also have a Fabrial, which they can use to detect cognitive shadows, but specifically shades, that they carry around with them so they don't get ambushed in the cognitive realm. And if you want to learn more about Fabrials, I've got a video on that. There will be a card up there if you want to learn more about Fabrials.
For being such an inaccessible world in the Cosmere, the planet and her people have a long reach. There's at least one known Threnodite off-world colony, the people who would come to be known as the Canticleites. They left their home and settled on an arguably more dangerous planet. Although the fact that they thought Canticle was a better place for them to live than Threnody should tell you something about Threnody. The social situation and the evil in Threnody pushed an entire group of people to leave.
Okay, but like, what even is the evil though? We don't know like hardly anything about it except that the Fort folk live in fear that somehow the evil will learn to cross the ocean and attack them in the forests of hell. One of the other few things that we know about the evil is its size.
According to Nomad and the Sunlit Man, the evil is wild, unchained investiture come to life with its own alien will, forming mountain-sized figures with impossible, unnerving features and unknowable motives. Threnody was not a place one visited to relax.
Really, Nomad, I hadn't noticed.
Threnodites may also have something to do with the creation of cognitive anchor chains. These are prized magical items that can anchor an individual through a cognitive anomaly. What a cognitive anomaly is and what the chain actually does to anchor someone is not known.
Minor spoilers for the Sunlit Man. If you don't want those, skip here. The Night Brigade is comprised of Threnodites, and even when one of their number dies, they still serve as a shade even after they die, seemingly retaining their identity somehow. Which is crazy because these guys don't have their identities retained.
Report, she said quietly, resting a hand on her continuity chain. The silver whip-like weapon rolled up and hung at her hip. She didn't reply, but as he left, two shades with glowing red eyes bearing the uniforms they'd been wearing when they had died joined him from the corners of the room. The Admiral needed no vocal command for them, and their movement meant she obviously wanted to be alone, not even accompanied by the dead.
One of the last things I want to talk about is the name of the planet, Threnody. A threnody is a hymn or lament sung in remembrance of someone, and Brandon has confirmed that the planet is named after someone or something.
Is Threnody named in memorial of someone or something? Big smile. Yes, it is.
The history of Threnody is somber. The atmosphere is morose. It's a place full of people who remember a better time and long for it, but know they can never return. The best word I can think of to describe the overall feeling of Threnody isn't in English, it's in Portuguese. This word doesn't have a super great translation into English, but I will try my best. This word is saudade. Saudade is a cousin to nostalgia, but it's different. It's more profound and deep. It is a longing for a time and a way that things once were, but also the acknowledgement and acceptance that that time can never be again. Threnodites are people accustomed to hardship. They have legends of a homeland that they know they can never reclaim and visit again. A people whose planet and souls have been warped by a conflict that happened millennia ago, that they're still feeling the repercussions from. A people whose souls and planet have been warped by a Shardic conflict millennia in the past, something they can't control. A people who might never know the beyond. An entire people of the damned. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and share it with all your friends who enjoy the Cosmere. This video took me a very long time to make, and I'm gonna be real with you guys. I'm a little spooked. Not because of the shades I made, just being in an aspen forest at night without cell service, miles from home, is kind of scary. So if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I'll catch you all next time. All right, guys. Bye.